We are live at our new time, Monday, 12 p.m. noon Mountain Standard Time. We are going to be talking to you guys everything there is to know about Fort Collins, things that are happening, things that happened over the last week, city council, some developments that are going on. And then I'm encouraging you all to get engaged and ask questions, comment. I'm actually going to allow for more time than I was on Thursday evenings, which was 12 to 15 minutes. And this is just going to kind of be open-ended. I'm going to have some kind of bookends because I've got things to do in the afternoon, but still going to go over kind of those high-level deals and then allow for time to people to jump onto the live stream, ask questions directly. We found that 12 to 15 minutes was really just too tight of a window for people to get notified and then jump on. So starting off, we are going to start with what happened over the last week. And part of that is Larimer County frees childcare assistance program, CCAP, which I think is a super important program. They're projected to go $800,000 over budget for the 23-24 fiscal year. And it's an income-based need application process, but fortunately, there is some free preschool childcare for children 4 years of age throughout the entire state of Colorado for up to 15 hours, and then additional time. I believe you need to pay for that. My son is in it this year, so his preschool is free this year, but we're going to have him go for another year at Miramont, which is about $500 per month, full-time Monday through Friday for I think 3 hours a day. But I can't emphasize enough how expensive childcare is. There was a gentleman who we're working with from California, and we were looking at prices of houses, and he goes, I could afford this if my child subscription was over. And he's got a 2-year-old, and that subscription is probably gonna go for another 16 to 22 years or so. And those subscriptions are non-negotiable and only seem to get more expensive as time goes. So it's unfortunate to see that. They are recommending that people still apply, and then depending on when kids come out, fall out, new people get on, but currently there is a freeze on new applicants being accepted into that program. They do provide other resources on Larimer County, so definitely feel free to reach out. I can get you some links to that. City Council had over 100 people speak. They have an open comment session on each City Council meeting, and it lasted for over 4 hours. But there's an open public comment session, essentially allowing anybody to come up for, I think it's 3 minutes, to talk on whatever issue may be either relevant to that night's meeting or relevant to the world today. And there was 100 individuals who was calling for a ceasefire. Basically, they wanted the city of Fort Collins to pass a resolution calling for a ceasefire to try to get the attention of the federal government. This city council meeting went for over 4 hours. There were some things that we were going to talk about here shortly, but it is pretty amazing to see, our council members sit there patiently listening to the voices of our citizens, and the citizens have a chance to go and bring things up that might be important, might be maybe misleading, or maybe they have expertise in that they can help city council members hear and see. But 100 individuals, they're saying, they want the ceasefire and release of Israel and Palestinian hostages. I'm going to be honest with you. I watched the city council videos on rerun. I did not watch the public comments because a lot of them are, again, and sometimes there were, conversations about the land development code, and there's people pros and cons. And sometimes they try to stack the deck almost with individuals, not necessarily this situation, but other situations, to where it is almost exhausting for the city council to hear 50 different people talk about how the land use code would impact them positively or negatively, but trying to push their kind of views forward. And city council members sit there, listen, and depending on, I mean, maybe there's some opinions that are changed. I do think city council members listen for sure and are open to ideas. And council member Olson suggested that he is all for the ceasefire, and whatever that Fort Collins City Council can do, he's for it. But we'll get into more of the city council meeting here shortly. In-N-Out Burger has submitted plans for their 3,600 square foot second location in northern Colorado. This would be off of I-25 and Harmony, the Ladera development that's going on right there, kind of by Costco. This would be their second location. They're hoping to put shovels in the dirt and be open by, I think it's like 2025 is what they're hoping to be open for, because it's about an 8-month build. And so by the time they get their plans through, submitted, approved, it's going to take some time. But that being said, I'm not a huge In-N-Out fan. Actually, honestly, haven't even been to the one in Loveland. So I'm curious if you've gone to In-N-Out, and I've been to In-N-Out before through when I was in California, went and visited, had their sauce, their French fries. We went to it when we were in Vegas as our team retreat. It's a good burger for sure. Not gonna lie, but it is interesting that it's such a diehard community making way and excited for that. I'm personally excited for the Krispy Kreme that might be coming to Fort Collins here sometime, where the Fazoli's was off of Harmony and College 287. But that's kind of stalled out too. They keep on City of Fort Collins, Colorado, and asks the contact for Krispy Kreme, what's the update, what's going on, and kind of mums the word right now. So probably throughout 2024, unfortunately, Krispy Kreme's not going to be here. Maybe 2025. The building is at least there, so probably when they do really push the pedal to the metal, they could probably do a relatively quick renovation. It was a restaurant as Fazoli, so there's no real big change of use. These timelines can get really extended depending on variances, the zoning, upzoning, downzoning, neighborhood meetings. We're going to talk shortly about the Poar Village development that's going to be going on, and I'll be curious to see kind of what the next steps are from these neighbors. But it seems like information's getting more and more out there and readily available. And that's actually, again, why we started this live stream. Was in 2022, when they passed the land development code, it just felt like City of Fort Collins put out a lot of information, but it wasn't necessarily being received or heard. And so platforms like this, our podcast, our YouTube channel, trying to put out, good information, quality content, engaging, interacting, answering questions for people that are interested. But these processes, these development timelines can take a really long time, especially like a residential project. I mean, from the time they go under contract on a plot of land, depending on its location, its zoning, its how much work they have to do prior to getting it to kind of shovel ready, is significant. And it could take a house 3 to 4 years before that project, that development, gets approved and really shovels in the dirt. And the timeline they showed on this Poar Village, I mean, they've been going at this since 2021, and it seems like they got the final approval, and potentially shovels are going to be in the dirt sooner than later. But another project going on out at Ladera is that respite care. We actually, right by my house, we have a respite care. It's a great facility, helps families that have maybe children with additional needs or support, and kind of gives them some respite from maybe the challenges that it comes with, having a child with, special needs or special individual needs. And I actually volunteered there a few times, and definitely pretty special children all there, but they're wanting to build a facility that would allow for up to 14 consecutive days for stays, up to 14 consecutive days. So if there was a parent or couple that went on a vacation, or spouse and partner went on vacation, up to 14 days at Ladera. And this would be 19,000 square foot facility. I'm not sure what the size of the facility is just to the south of my house, but it's a great organization. Each year they put on a phenomenal fundraiser, the Respite Ball. I have not been to that personally, but I know my uncle is a big part of that, and the community really, really supports respite care, and it's a great company and kind of group that puts this on. And so we'll see what that happens with that 19,000 square foot single story building. 8 overnight beds, as well as a homeroom, gym, and sensory. So eight overnight beds for up to 14 consecutive days for caregivers to get a break. CVS is closing shop near downtown Target. And I guess it's kind of part of a larger closing, but they're closing about 10% of their stores throughout the United States. They've closed up to 600 already, with 300 more set to close. If you are getting your pharmacy, your drugs filled there at CVS, I believe they're still going to allow those to be fulfilled up to a certain point, but that will be closing sooner than later. So if you are using that as your pharmacy, you're going to want to look for alternative options in the downtown area. That Target is absolutely awesome there. It was kind of a 24-hour fitness for a while. That underground parking, it's kind of a tough location because it's not great parking above grade. There is parking down below grade. So it'll be interesting to see, they choose these locations like 24-hour fitness closed down different locations throughout Fort Collins. CVS is closing up locations. And can the foot traffic in Fort Collins, the parking, the density, and things of that nature in that downtown area support the rental rates that are being charged for these commercial buildings and commercial areas such as CVS? And is it, easy pickings for these kind of big corporations, franchises that like, hey, this location just doesn't work. The economics don't work. The price per square foot for the rent doesn't meet how much people are walking by, how much car traffic's parking, the parking that's available, the size of the space that's needed. So there's lots of people that are really kind of sharpening the pencil on these economic decisions. And it's really important that Fort Collins supports, local. I was just having a conversation with somebody, and we were talking about Amazon. It was a conversation with Ginger Graham of Ginger and Baker, and how important it is for us to be shopping local, supporting local. And I'm guilty. I definitely shop Amazon. Don't get me wrong. There's boxes always that arrive. There's jokes that go on all the time about, our spouses, our partners, who each day there's an Amazon box there. But if we want this vibrant and growing community, we've got to kind of put our money where our mouth is, go shop and eat at Ginger and Baker. It might be a little bit of a premium than you would get at somewhere else, maybe like an Old Chicago. And don't get me wrong, there are franchises that are owned by local individuals, but places like Ginger and Baker, Bistro Natil, and things like that really deserve our time and attention and money. And they're going to have to increase prices. It was insane. I definitely recommend you guys watching that podcast. We've got some great podcasts coming out, by the way. We've got Coach Jay Norvell, Ginger Graham. We've got my uncle, Mark Sukup, is going to be on the show talking. He's the current mayor of Timnath. Semester at Sea. I mean, we just have had some phenomenal guests, and currently and in the past. And if you are looking kind of just to get different perspectives, whether it's a business owner, city manager, chamber of commerce, CEO, go listen to those podcasts. Just pop them on. They're great information about Fort Collins. But that being said, Ginger was just really, really harping about like, hey, food costs. She gave us an example about celery that like had increased by like, I think it was like 600%. And they just had to not have celery that week for some of their options. And there are other difficulties they've had with labor and food supply and things of that nature. So if you know a small business, the best thing you can do is support them. Support them on Instagram, share their stories. I love it when friends or family share a story that I've sent out there. I run a small business. There's 7 of us at Sukup Real Estate Services. And yeah, I am very, very intentional about a small overhead, but I also ran Old Town Square for a decade and know how incredibly expensive some of those spaces can be, not only considering your rent, but your triple net expenses, your property taxes, your insurance, your common area maintenance. So it takes a lot of effort to run these businesses and establishments, a lot of risk. And it's up to us to really get in there and support those businesses. So CVS, of course, it's a national brand, it's a chain, but we don't want to see shuttered shops. I think people are awestruck when they drive down Fort Collins and see that a lot of the businesses are open, a vibrant downtown community. So definitely want to keep at that. Housing Catalyst has received Prop 123 funds. Their first distribution, I think of like 26 million, was it 36.5 million? $25.3 million was released from this Prop 123 funds. And Housing Catalyst was one of the selected recipients of $1.6 million that they're going to use to buy land at Eastbrook Drive. That's going to be the land cost. So we've covered that. But the rest of the project is going to be $36.5 million to build this 3-story affordable low-income housing. And what that is, low-income housing is for a family of 4, the median household income, according to HUD, and the new numbers have not been released, but was $105,000. And so to qualify for that, you could only make $64,000 for a family of 4 to be able to qualify to apply and rent these locations. It's expected that shovels are going to be in the dirt 24-25, and it opened 2027. And these funds, these Prop 2023 funds, are going to continue to be dished out on an annual basis to City of Fort Collins, Housing Catalyst. And that's a big driver for the City of Fort Collins to make sure that we are checking the boxes with our land use code, our land development code, whatever you want to call it, that we are going to be able to receive these funds from the state that are directed towards affordable housing. And so it'll be interesting to see where the land use code change goes this year, but I know it's a very important deal. $1.6 million for the Housing Catalyst is no small deal. And then they're going to go after low-income housing tax credits to help with the other $35 million worth of build. But these projects are going to help on the rental side for families to be able to afford to live here. I'm doing a video tomorrow that's talking about moving to Fort Collins and whether you should, what it looks like if you should buy a house in Fort Collins. And it was based off of a median price of $620,000. A first-time home buyer puts down about 8%. A secondary third-time home buyer puts down about 19%. Interest rates are about 6.25% right now. And all of that being considered, PITI would be about $3,500 to $4,000 for somebody to buy a house in Fort Collins right now, monthly, including PMI, which puts them at an annual gross income needed if you assume a 30% housing expense, which is a healthy housing expense, to pay no more than 30% of your gross income on a monthly basis on housing expense. Means that families need to be making between $146,000 to $164,000 to be able to buy a house in Fort Collins. Yes, of course, renting is less expensive, but still, renting is $3,000 a month for a single family, $2,500 to $33,000 for a single family house right now. So that's $36,000 a year. So you need to be making close to $100,000 a year for it to be affordable per your income. And what these projects do is allow families that are making substantially less than that to be able to pay rents that makes sense for them to then be able to pay for childcare, the CCAP that is no longer there, the utility fees, the grocery fees that we were just talking about that Ginger and Jack Graham, run Ginger and Baker and are increasing. I mean, my family spent $600 for groceries. Now, apparently it's supposed to last us 2 weeks. I don't know if it necessarily did, but apparently it was supposed to last us for 2 weeks. $600 for groceries. And we're also really bad because we go out to eat all the time. So we spend a lot of money on food, 3 kids, all that good stuff. But these projects are hugely important to Fort Collins, Northern Colorado. As the cost of living increases, we need to make sure that we are somehow supporting or allowing, and allowing means maybe the land use code change, the affordable housing portion of it gets pushed through so that then we can then receive the Prop 123 funds from the state. Sorry, of course, the first time I go live and have no time restraints, I have a cold, so I apologize for that. And make sure you guys, if you guys have questions or comments while you guys are watching, definitely feel free to reach out and ask. Poudre School District is going to start adjusting school start times to address the bus driver shortages. There's 37 vacancies available right now for bus drivers in the Poudre School District. And they're going to, starting for the 24-25 school year, change start times 10 to 15 minutes, depending on elementary or middle school. And I think it's genius. I mean, it is going to be difficult, obviously to accommodate, whether it's your work schedule or what time you have to be to school, or, the dual income families right now that both work and have to coordinate all that kind of stuff. But, it's better than getting rid of routes. And I can tell you that my daughter takes the bus. It was terrifying for me as a father to put her on the bus the first time as a kindergartner, but she does great. And the bus driver is amazing. We call her, she's Miss Purple, and is her name. And she cares for the students. And when she gets off, if Noah's being a little bit of a booger, or or if she's just doing great, she knows me, my two sons, and she talks about make sure that we're safe across the street. So I'm not sure about other bus drivers. Obviously, this is my first experience with one, but we absolutely love our bus driver. And if we can keep that route, but have to adjust our school start or end time, that's something that we're going to have to do. And it changes the need for the Poudre School District from 37 bus driver vacancies to only needing 10 bus drivers because of the change and allowance for these current bus drivers to do multiple routes because of the change in start time, end times. And there's also continued talk about school consolidations, enrollment numbers changing, about different schools. There's lots of different data out there about the age of an individual owning a house now with a certain amount of bedrooms versus 10 years ago, 20 years ago. People are trying to age in place. They either can't sell and then move somewhere else. And this is across the country. And so they're staying in that house, and then no new families are coming in, no new blood, so to speak, no new young kids. And so these schools are having decreased amount of numbers because, well, the turnover that we're expecting or historically used to being seen isn't necessarily happening. And so school consolidation conversations will continue to happen. And, so being a parent of a kid in the Poudre School District, definitely something that I will be and intend to pay attention to moving forward. All righty. Let's see here. It is Valentine's Day week. I will be sending some flowers to my wife on Wednesday. Excited for that. There's a Colorado Eagles Sweetheart game this Wednesday, $60 for a pair of tickets, $20 per ticket, and then $20 for concessions. The Love Bug Jamboree, February 16th, 6 to 8 p.m., Northside Aslan Center. Bring your kids, $14 per person. And then let's see here, the Regional, which is right next to our office on Mason, $90 5-course meal starting at 4 p.m. I still have not scheduled our Valentine's Day dinner for the weekend. We just got new childcare and kind of a slow introduction, and it'll be our first date night in a month on Friday. Definitely blessed and excited to have our first date night in a while, but we're just going to make it a pretty minimal, get out there for a couple hours, come back, allow for a smoother transition to going to bed. A 68th World Unity Fair, February 17th, 5 to 9 p.m. at the Laurie Student Center. Lots of different cultures, groups are going to be showing food, what their culture is about. So if you're looking for something to do, February 17th, 5 to 9 p.m. at the Laurie Student Center. Pretty exciting. All right, now jumping into our city council portion. Again, this was a 4-hour city council session. I mean, it was definitely long. Now, the actual kind of conversation portion of it, which talked about philanthropic needs for, because there was a discussion item. There was a consent agenda item that was pulled, item number 15, which would allow philanthropic funds to be used to pay for a feasibility study for pickleball throughout the city of Fort Collins. Pickleball is an initiative of the city of Fort Collins, and we have these funds, these philanthropic funds that can be allocated towards these fees. And Emily Francis wanted to pull it because she just didn't know if she liked that pickleball, because it is seemingly an affluent type of sport. And she just wasn't necessarily super excited about the thought that, hey, because these people have a club, a group, they can organize, that we're using funds that maybe other groups that can't organize or can't get together and discuss are maybe lacking the ability to kind of snag these funds. But Mike Calhoun, who was on the podcast, Parks and Rec, great podcast, talks about all things Fort Collins Parks and Recreation, discussed, hey, this is part of our strategic plan. It doesn't necessarily earmark money for pickleball courts. It just allows for a feasibility study to suggest where pickleball courts could be, the noise factor, and kind of the economics behind that. Ultimately got passed on first reading. So that looks like those philanthropic funds are going to be earmarked for a feasibility study for pickleball in Fort Collins moving forward, but it still has to go through second reading. Let's see here. Making board and commission liaison and council committee assignments. I learned a little bit. So there's tons of different boards and committees, and ultimately they are appointments. They are made by appointments. People, City of Fort Collins citizens can apply for these appointments, these positions, these on boards and committees. But there is a liaison from the city council that chooses who is accepted onto these boards. So there is some major influence that can happen, even though it's an appointment position, specifically around the Planning and Zoning Commission, where a person who might be pro housing or let's just say pro land use code or versus land use code, depending on their position, could hire or appoint an individual based off their application, based off of what that person's opinion or kind of stance is on that particular stance. And Susan Gutowski and Emily Francis. Emily Francis has been on that board, or she's been that liaison for the last 3 years, I believe, was seeking to be on there for a fourth. But then Susan Gutowski was saying, hey, and Susan Gutowski is kind of on the other side of the land use code. She's saying that she wants kind of land use code change to be absolutely minimized. Let's not affect or impact any existing neighborhoods. Whereas Emily Francis is definitely on the very, very other side of like, let's be as dense as we can be. Let's be super pro housing, affordable housing. What can we do? Decrease lot size. So definitely kind of two sides of the fence right now, because that's kind of where Fort Collins is on two sides of the fence. And so it was interesting to hear that conversation. Ultimately, Susan Gutowski, she withdrew her name from that position, essentially giving it to Emily Francis. And I think Emily Francis is very smart. She is well-read. She comes to every meeting extremely intentional about wanting to make the best of the time. So, regardless, I think she is going to do great in that position, but definitely something interesting to kind of hear the background. And maybe everyone already knew this, but I did not. But hearing the background of having a city council liaison who appoints these people and these committees and groups, which then ultimately have a say in our next topic of our Polestar Village. So our Polestar Village is this kind of community learning environment, 144 dwelling units or so, going to be on 20 acres, basically between Elizabeth and Mulberry, off of just to the east of Overland. It's kind of between these neighborhoods. Rogers Park, I believe, is right next to, and it started in 2021 with a conceptual review, neighborhood meeting in 2022. Then there was an appeal through the citizens in 2023, and then it was approved. Sorry, it was approved by planning and zoning. I believe like 6-0, or 4-0, unanimously. It was approved by planning and zoning, but then the neighborhood group put together an appeal, and that's what ultimately went in front of the city council. So there are individuals who are appointed on the Planning and Zoning Commission who are all citizens of Fort Collins. A lot of them have either experience in that certain area or a desire to be a part of that area, so planning and zoning. And they get direction from the city of Fort Collins staff, attorneys, people who are experts at the land use code, but then ultimately have to make their own determination based off of all of that information. And what they said was, yes, it does in fact go by the land use code. And so we are going to approve this development, the Poudre Village development on the northwest side of Fort Collins, and it can move forward with its development. And this group, city, made an appeal, which then brings it to the city of Fort Collins City Council, which ultimately has to make a decision. Did the Planning and Zoning Commission abide by the land use code appropriately? Not is the rules going to be, not should we pass this development or not, but did they abide by these land use codes, which ultimately the city of Fort Collins saying, hey, we understand you citizens, density is tough, it's scary. Maybe there was some things that aren't super clear on the appeal process, and maybe we should do better as a city to help people understand that a little bit better. But ultimately 6-1 voted that yes, the Planning and Zoning Commission did go by the land use code and appropriately apply the land use code to that. So the Poudre Village, which is definitely a unique village and a unique development on the northwest side of Fort Collins, has kind of got commune, tenants in common opportunities. You can buy portions of buildings, community gathering buildings, open areas, farming. Affordable housing was definitely a conversation during that time, but it should probably be starting here sooner than later, depending on what that group does, because the sanctuary at the Green, I mean, they had to go through and put an appeal through it. And there actually was found that the Colorado Supreme Court or some court basically said that, no, we didn't apply the right plans. So it can get really convoluted, but ultimately, currently the projection is that Poudre Village will move forward. Alrighty, so we're at 32 minutes. Oof. Well, I mean, only 15 minutes long, 17 minutes longer than my max that I was used to. No questions right now, or comments or engagement, which again, that's going to be ultimately the desire for this. Is we're going to check to see if this is worth it, because I want there to be questions and engagement and people to ask, like, well, what about if this happens? Or what are your thoughts on the King Supers in Midtown Fort Collins? Like all these different conversations and things that are happening at City Council. And I will give my subjective opinion, which ultimately then go and ask other people. This is, of course, I'm born and raised in Fort Collins. I'm in real estate, have a real estate brokerage firm, believe in business, believe in economics, believe in affordable housing, believe the vibrancy and strength of Fort Collins moving forward. So, know that that's all of my kind of self anointed thoughts. And from there, build your own and ask questions. But hopefully this allows for engagement and conversations. But I appreciate you guys joining. And we will come again next Monday with an additional live in Fort Collins. All right, guys, have a great day.